to remind you, to remind all of us of who we are, of what we value, of the importance of trying and failing and trying again. And only we can make the decision about whether the trying again will have its hoped-for outcome or whether it is time to try something else. This year is the 102nd anniversary of the flower ceremony first held in Prague. This is one of two uniquely Unitarian Universalist celebrations that most of our congregations honor each year. It's one many of us have come to look forward to, and one whose importance grows as part of my own practice each year. Until about 2016, even having a historian's appreciation for the full story of its creator, it seemed all too easy and even self-serving at times to do this ceremony, beautiful as it is. Our American culture tells us all the time in so many ways that, like flowers, we are each beautiful and wonderful, even as it treats us as if we can be molded into an ideal body type, or as if whatever they're selling is something that we all need. You're special as long as you conform. But that election changed everything. I mean, I knew things were not awesome no matter what the Lego song says, but that election made it clear that things were not only not awesome, but so not awesome that a large portion of this country was prepared to sacrifice the greater good just to get their bargaining chips on one issue or another. And somehow, here we are again. If you wonder why you're tired, it's because living in Florida is exhausting as liberal and progressive people. Even though this year the Florida legislative session was far less terrible than the previous one, victory isn't usually defined as not getting worse. It literally wears at our spirits, our minds, our hearts, and our bodies. The German Lutheran pastor Martin Niemöller was, in the 1920s and early 1930s, a supporter of Nazi ideas and supported radical right-wing movements. That is, until Adolf Hitler came to power in 1933. Then Niemöller became an outspoken opponent of Hitler's, criticizing his interference in the Protestant church. It's interesting how people's viewpoints change when they are suddenly personally impacted. It is Niemöller's words that have been immortalized to remind us of the lesson that he learned. He said, "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." Here in Florida, of course, our voices are the marginalized ones. Whereas the Florida legislature holds a supermajority, we are a super minority, or at least it always looks that way in this gerrymandered and favored of right-winger state. Republicans and right-wing politicians, strategists, and fundamentalists began plotting a long-term strategy back in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Once implemented, they knew that it would take about 2 generations to have the traction they expected, but they were ready to wait it out. The outcome would be worth it. Margaret Atwood, Octavia Butler, and other authors and observers knew what was coming. That's why Atwood wrote The Handmaid's Tale, published in 1985, and Butler wrote much, but the Parable series was published in the 1990s. What we are seeing in the political landscape today is the fruits of those carefully laid out plans and dreams, a right-wing takeover of our democratic republic. Germany also didn't become a dictatorship overnight. If you're a history nerd like me, you know that Germany wasn't even a nation state until 1870, when all the parts of Germany and Prussia unified in a war against France. It's always wars. Prussia and the German Confederation had long had a strong seat of power in Europe. Finally being called into one body altered the balance of power in Europe. Western Europe remained relatively stable only until the Great War of 1914. That same year, a Baptist pastor and church planter named Norbert Chapek fled Europe for the U.S. His views were too liberal even then for the German authorities, and it was not safe for Chapek, his wife, or their 8 children to stay. During his time in the U.S., Chapek resigned as a Baptist minister as he continued to become a more liberal. And after his first wife died, he met and married his second wife, Maya. Together, they found the Unitarian Church, which they were impressed by and that their children loved. At the end of 1921, they decided to return to their newly formed homeland of Czechoslovakia, and as they felt called both to help rebuild their country and to spread the good word of our faith. Chapek founded a church in Prague that grew quickly. Czechoslovakia, like much of Western Europe, was deeply devastated by the war. People didn't have enough to eat, clothing to wear, or to replace what they had. Families were displaced, and the landscape itself was devastated. Many people left the Catholic Church, which was the most common there. Chapek transformed the look and feel of his new congregation to make it even more distinct. No robes or vestments, long sermons that people connected with, different music. While people connected with the faith itself, they were not as connected to each other. In a place and time still so marked by the hardships and struggle of war, he wanted to create a ritual that would give them meaning and beauty and hope. He had an idea. Each person was asked to bring a flower or a budding branch with them to church the following Sunday. The service was about a number of ideas related to the flowers, their unique beauty, how they differed from each other in shape, size, color, and kind, and the wonderful image they created when brought together. This was in 1923 when the Chapeks hosted the first flower festival. Reverend Dr. Chapek then made comparisons between the flowers and the people, reminding them each of their inherent worth and dignity, their beauty, the power they create and share when together. Each year, he consecrated the bouquets they created together. One blessing that he shared is, "Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these, thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us, amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts, to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the beauty and value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of thy most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship, but may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in this world." The flower ceremony became a ritual of togetherness and hope, and one that brought the community closer together, to each other, in a way that they had previously been unable to be. The church flourished. In 20 years, it had about 3,200 members. Also in 20 years, though Chapek's church was growing, Europe had entered another great war. Maya, who had long since become Reverend Maya, came back to the U.S. in 1939 to fundraise for relief efforts at home by going on a speaking tour. Things worsened such that she wasn't able to return home during the war. She decided to do what she could while she was here and became a minister of the New Bedford, Massachusetts Unitarian Church, where she served from 1940 to 1943. During her tour and ministry, she shared the flower ceremony that her husband had created. It became a widely celebrated ritual throughout Unitarian Universalism and remains the best known, uniquely UU celebration. Reverend Norbert made the decision to stay at home when the war broke out. He felt called to remain with his people. In 1941, along with one of his daughters, he was arrested by the Gestapo, and his books, sermons, and other writings were confiscated. He was charged with listening to foreign radio broadcasts, which was a capital offense, and other crimes. But of course, it was his our heretical liberal theology that led for him to be convicted. Ever a minister, he continued to support others in the camps, inspiring hope and an inner strength and peace through his quiet presence. He spent a year and a half approximately imprisoned in concentration camps where he was tortured, and he was gassed to death in Dachau in late 1942. Reverend Maya learned of his death only after the war ended. What Chapek taught us 100 years ago is the truth, that we, each of us, in every way are beautiful. Our colors and hues, our expressions, our sizes and shapes, the way our bodies move and sound, all of it is magic. And we are blessings and wonders all on our own. We each shine and bless the world as we are. And that when we come together, and this is an important part, when we stand and sit and rock and roll together, we are even more beautiful. Together we craft a deeper wholeness we cannot find alone. Together we craft a power we cannot find alone. Together we are better. We need each other, and we belong to each other in the most profound ways. Chapek's life and work was never meant to be the center of the flower ceremony, but we don't have control over what our legacies will be. 102 years later, and given the state of the state, the country, and the world, it seems as important as ever to remember his faithful legacy. Like Miss Rumphius, he sought to make and leave the world a more beautiful place than the one that he was born into. Chapek held his beliefs, even knowing what the future would be for doing so. Like both the story and the reading, he reminded us of the power we have as individuals and as a community to create hope and a greater good. A colleague recently shared that after hearing the Chapek story, now every time he sees a flower, he thinks of it as nature's way of flipping the bird at fascists. I won't judge you if you think about that when you see them. Beauty is one of the best ways we have to resist all that we need to resist. May the flowers always remind us of all that is good and true. May they remind us of the importance of beauty in our lives and work. May we honor lives of service to others and to our shared faith, and remember to hold and celebrate and build with each other. May we live into the radical possibilities of our faith and know both its strength and our failures. May our values ground us and our creativity bolster us to give us the strength and courage to live our lives as fully as we can in the time we have, as the Reverend Dr. Chapek did with his, making the world a little more beautiful. When the service concludes, I invite you to come up, and whether you brought a flower or not, to take another flower, not one that you brought, but something to take home with you as a reminder of the beauty of yourselves and of this place. If you would please rise and lift your voice in song with me for our closing hymn, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.